everyone, welcome back to the Library of Parthos. My name is Sarah and today I am going to be reviewing The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. If you have watched any of my videos before, you know that I am a huge Holly Black fan. I feel like I've said this a million times, but I'm gonna say it again. As a kid, I loved the Spiderwick Chronicles. As an adult, I found out that Holly Black also had YA fantasy that she wrote, and more recently adult fiction, and of course dived right in and absolutely have loved everything that I've read by her so far. This book is no exception, of course. So I'll start out as usual with a spoiler-free, very quick summary, and then I'll get into spoilers. So of course, if you're planning on reading this for yourself and do not want any part of the book ruined, feel free to skip to the end of the video. I do want to start off by saying I think it's important for this book, even though it's not part of the Folk of the Air trilogy, there's so much background information in the Folk of the Air that I think it is important to read those stories before coming to this one. You could read this on its own. However, I feel like you would be missing a lot of the political aspects of Elfhame that were discussed in the Folk of the Air series. I do have a review of that entire series, which I will link if you are interested in watching. And if you've not read those, just do it. So the main character of the story is named Ren or Surin, and she is from a place called the Court of Teeth. You'll kind of get a little background information on her in the Folk of the Air series, so I'm not going to say much so that I don't ruin that. And she is on a quest with Oak, who is related to the main character from the Folk of the Air series. Again, not going to say much there so I don't give it away. But there's a lot of political stuff going on between Elfhame and between the Court of Teeth. And so Surin and Oak and all of their counterparts are heading to the Court of Teeth to kind of see if they can get back some important magical pieces, maybe strike a deal, get a little bit of revenge, and free Oak's father from captivity in the Court of Teeth. So that's pretty much it, keeping it spoiler free. I don't really want to give too much away, and as I said, a lot of the political stuff that's going on comes from the original trilogy. Alright, so getting into some spoilers, my thoughts on the book, it was just so nice to be back in Fairyland. Like, I missed it. I didn't realize I missed it, but I did. And I also forgot how mean they are. I know that was like one of the big things that I talked about in my review of the Folk of the Air, but they're really nasty and I love it. It's so great. Okay, anyway, so just kind of starting off with something that I thought while I was reading this story, I couldn't wait to see what was going on with Jude and Cardan, and they never showed up in the book at all. So I was quite disappointed that they were not in the story at all. They are mentioned a couple of times, so you do kind of get an idea of what's going on with them and how the kingdom's going, etc. However, I really wanted to see just what was going on and how their relationship has changed. Also, I didn't realize when I started this, when I purchased this book, I didn't realize that it was going to be set in the future, so Oak is like grown. I thought he was going to still be a little kid, so it was nice to see him grow up so fast. But it was cool to see this kid who had such an important role in the Folk of the Air series, but didn't really have a huge role in like the storytelling itself. Like, he wasn't really a main character. Now to have his own story. Okay, so important things to know from the Folk of the Air trilogy to understand the Stolen Heir. So Jude is a human. She's married to Cardan. He is Fae. They are the rulers of Elfhame. Jude's stepfather murdered her parents, brought her and her twin sister to Faerie, and raised them as his own daughters. Very complicated relationship there. And Oak, the youngest of that family, was adopted. So he was an illegitimate child of Prince Dane, one of Cardan's older brothers, and like I don't even know, like a consort of the king or something along those lines. and his mother was poisoned, and he was just kind of cut out and taken to Maddock, who is Jude and Taryn and Oak's, I guess, adopted father, and he was raised there. Because he is part of that royal line, the Greenbrier line, there was this elaborate plot created to put Oak on the throne. Maddock was going to be in charge and kind of, you know, ruling in his stead until he came of age, if that was ever, like, possible, or if he was just going to kind of keep the power. And then Jude got involved creating her own plot, and Cardan ends up getting crowned king, and he is still king. So that's, I think in a nutshell, kind of the important things to know. For Oak's safety, he was sent to the mortal realm for a period of time to live with his older sister, and I believe his stepmother as well ended up there for a period of time. So in all of these like political things that are going on in the Folk of the Air trilogy, the Lord and Lady from the Court of Teeth end up coming with their daughter. I say that in quotations because of the way she was treated. She had this like silver rope like tying her hands together, but it was like stitched into her skin, and she had this bridle on also like digging into her skin that allowed whoever had it to control her, and they were trying to kind of get some of the control of the kingdom too, so they attempted to have Surin become betrothed to Oak in the hopes that maybe they would be able to kind of overthrow the kingdom through her influence at some point. Cut to the Stolen Heir. Surin, she left the Court of Teeth. She managed to escape. And she just kind of ran away to the mortal world. And in the beginning of the story, it's mentioned that she was in the mortal world. She was actually adopted by a mortal family, and then Lord Gerald and Lady Nor came to get her and took her back to Faerie and had her convinced that her mortal family completely hated her and was terrified of her. I do have to say, the Court of Teeth is kind of just very like, I know all of the folk are like kind of mean, but like they're like really into like torture and death and all of that kind of stuff. Like it's pretty interesting. Surin, who goes by Ren, has been living in the mortal realm for several years. She's just kind of homeless. Like she has a little thatched dwelling that she's created. She eats out of the garbage. She steals food if she can from her unparents, is what she calls them, the mortals that she had been adopted by at one point. And she is being chased by the storm hag, Bogdana, I think that's how you say her name. And as she's being chased by her at one point, she's rescued by this group of folk led by Prince Oak, oddly rhyming there, didn't mean to, who says that he needs her help on a quest. So at this point we meet our main like adventuring party. So we have Ren, we have Prince Oak, we have his guard Tiernan, and Hyacinth, who is like he's a weird one. So he was one of Maddock's followers. He was turned into a falcon for betraying the crown. And then Lady Nor in the Court of Teeth said, okay, if you come serve me, I'll feed you every day and slowly you'll start to turn back into a human. But he's now kind of a prisoner of Oak. And he has the bridle on because he betrayed them at one point. And so he's slowly turning back into a falcon, but like he's still also very loyal. So like he's just... He's all over the place anyway. So this is the group that rescues Ren from the Storm Hag, and they tell her, hey, we need your help. We're going north to the Court of Teeth. Maddock is a prisoner there, and Oak wants to rescue him. Also, Lady Nor has been creating these really grotesque creatures, and she's been doing that with the bones of Queen Mab. She was like one of the founders of Elfheim. Her bones are imbued with like creation powers, and so Lady Nor somehow has taken those bones and is using them to create these like stick slash rock slash mud slash flesh creatures to do her bidding. And she's also hoping to get the heart of Melith. So there's this legend that Queen Mab wanted a daughter, wasn't happening for her. So this witch said, oh, hey, I'll give you my daughter if you'll raise her and treat her as royalty, and maybe potentially let her be the next in line. And then when the queen actually did have a daughter, she was like not interested in the witch's daughter anymore. And so the witch came to kill Mab's actual daughter and mistakenly killed her own daughter. And so she took her heart and kind of enchanted it, and to like uncreate and destroy things that have been created. And it was linked to Mab's bones. They, I guess, work best in conjunction with each other. So Lady Noor has the bones, she wants the heart, and that was the trade that was offered for Oak's father. So he has devised this plan to take Milith's heart to Lady Noor in exchange for Maddock, but actually it's a deer heart that he put in this fancy case to kind of trick her into it. And while they're there, steal the bones, get Maddock free, and head on back to Elfhame. Throughout the story, there are flashbacks to Oak and Ren as children. They did meet a couple of times. They played games together. He helped to free her. She hid under his bed during the Battle of the Serpent. Check out the Folk of the Air trilogy if you don't know what I'm talking about. And so they kind of had this friendship, and then she was in the mortal realm. He was kind of back and forth being, you know, attempted assassinations because he was part of the royal family, being hidden in the mortal realm, coming back, like he was just all over the place. And so now they're kind of reconnecting and realizing like what has happened to them in all this time that they were apart. Oak is very much like the charmer, like having that kind of friendship history. Of course, Ren is very attracted to him, but realizes that he might just be using his looks and his charm to kind of get what he wants from people. So as they're heading to the Court of Teeth, of course, they are met with all kinds of trouble along the way, whether it is Lady Noor's stick things coming after them. They get kind of stuck in a village of trolls for a while. Like, there's just a bunch of things that are going on. Something else that I really like about what Holly Black does with Faerie and with the folk, and I think this is pretty like true for like the typical way that they're portrayed in like myths and things in the past, and it's some authors choose to kind of like water this down a little bit, but I don't think she does. So the folk can't lie, and so it's kind of interesting reading some of the dialogue of the characters sometimes and thinking like, okay, they said that, but they can't lie, so did they really mean that, or are they trying to like hint at something else and kind of like work their way around that? So here's an example. This is a huge spoiler, so like of course if you're trying to avoid like the end of the book being ruined, skip. Anyway, so when Oak and the crew arrive to the Court of Teeth, he does tell Lady Noor, yes, I have Melith's heart with me. And of course, from Ren's perspective, which is the perspective that we're reading it from, she knows that he has the deer heart with the fancy case. That's all that she knows. And she doesn't think that he would just walk into the Court of Teeth with it on, like with it somewhere on his person. That doesn't really make sense. So he was telling the truth, but in a little bit of a different way. Before getting to like how that was the truth, a couple of things. First of all, the Citadel of the Court of Teeth is just very bizarre. There's a lot of just like really nasty people, and Lady Noor's husband, Lord Gerald, is dead. So of course she wears his hands in a necklace around her neck, and he'll like massage her shoulders. It's kind of creepy. Anyway, so at one point Bogdana tells Ren that the story of how she came to be is different than what she assumed it would be. So Lord Gerald and Lady Noor wanted a child, they couldn't have one, so they went to Bogdana and said, we want you to make us one. So she made one out of sticks and snow and a little bit of their blood. And so for a lot of the book, Ren is like, oh my gosh, like I'm not even a real person, I'm just a pile of snow and a little bit of blood. Like, what does that even make me? Like, how can I even think about having a future with like Oak or anybody if I'm not even a real person? When Oak eventually says like, yes, I have Mella's heart with me, that's when she realizes that that was one of the additional things used to create her. So she has Mella's heart inside of her, and she at that moment kind of like unlocks this massive power that has been kind of stuck inside of her, and she's just able to like undo a whole bunch of stuff. Like she just thinks to Lady Noor like, I wish you would go away, and she just like disintegrates into thin air, like no big deal. And so because Ren had like this horrible life, of course she's worried people are going to betray her. She's worried Oak is going to betray her. And so she sends Tiernan and Maddock and Hyacinth back to Elfhame. But she says, no, I'm going to keep Oak here. And she puts the bridle on him so that she has complete control of him, which is just like such a loss of trust on her part. And she, at the very end of the book, seems to be heading toward the dark side, which she was trying to avoid. But I think in her mind, it's like, I have the power to protect myself now from getting hurt, so that's what I'm going to do. Yeah, so we kind of end with a cliffhanger. Ren is now in charge of the Court of Teeth. She has Oak in prison with the bridle on. Maddock, Tiernan, and Hyacinth are on their way back to Elfhame. And so I don't know what to expect next. I am very excited to read the second book in this. I believe it's a duology, and I believe it's supposed to be coming out next February. So going to be very impatiently waiting for that one. But if you've not read any of the Folk of the Air books, if you've not just anything by Holly Black, if you've not read it, please check it out. Highly recommend. That's it for this review. As always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon. Bye.